Long before history arrives, the battlefield is quiet as we drift over empty plains, shattered hills, and unnamed rivers. The silence feels deliberate. Some battles resist explanation, leaving behind questions heavier than weapons. Ancient legends speak of armies that vanished, victories that made no sense, and defeats that reshaped the world without a single witness. As dust lifts from forgotten ground, we begin our search. Mystery in warfare isn't an absence of evidence, but a presence of contradictions, where outcomes defied numbers, logic, and all expectation. Across lost civilizations, archaeology uncovers battlefields with no clear victor. MASS. Graves without weapons, and fortifications abandoned overnight. It's as if conflicts ended abruptly or changed direction without warning. Ancient maps freeze troop movements that never concluded roads leading to nowhere. Camps left intact, forbidden texts, hinted omens, celestial events, and sudden environmental shifts that altered fate. Official chronicles simplify these outcomes into clean victories, suppressing the chaos, panic, and retreat. Admitting uncertainty weakened authority, and mystery was easier to bury than confusion. Climate change often loomed unseen over these encounters. Sudden storms, dense fog, or freezing nights could transform a solid strategy into a disaster. Archaeology reveals armies unprepared for these shifts, equipment abandoned, formations broken, and supply lines erased by floods or droughts. Legends transform these moments into divine intervention or supernatural terror, masking the reality that nature itself became an unrecorded combatant. Rulers preferred myth to accountability, ensuring the role of climate remained misunderstood and detached from human decisions. Today, modern technology revisits these sites with tools unimaginable to ancient commanders. Satellite imagery, soil analyses, and digital reconstruction can trace movements once thought unknowable. They revealed that some battles ended not through combat, but through collapse, as morale shattered, leadership failed, or information misfired. Yet political influence shapes interpretation. Unresolved battles challenge national pride and heroic traditions, so ambiguity is smoothed into certainty, and unanswered questions are reframed as legend. As this journey begins, we won't rush toward famous names or dates. We'll linger on the uncertainty itself. The most mysterious battles are not those we know least about, but those we think we understand completely. As we step deeper into these contested moments, our story sharpens around what was lost, misrepresented, or deliberately concealed. We'll question not only how these battles were fought, but why their true nature remains obscured, waiting just beneath the soil, the silence, and our selective memory. Have you ever heard of a famous battle where everyone agrees on what happened? Probably not. History is full of conflicts where the story changes depending on who you ask. Ancient records will call the same battle a glorious triumph, a crushing disaster, or even a divine sign. One side claims victory, but then archaeologists dig up layers of retreat right where the celebration was supposed to be. It gets even stranger when you look at old maps. They're often redrawn after the fact, showing new borders as if the outcome was always certain, completely erasing the real-time confusion and panic that actually defined the moment. Sometimes, forbidden texts or private letters surface, revealing that commanders were fed false intelligence, or they completely misread the terrain. Some even deliberately hid their own defeats just to hold on to power. In societies built on the idea of military honor, admitting you were confused was often seen as worse than losing the battle itself. So, silence became a strategy. Unanswered questions were left to fester and hardened into heroic legends, instead of being investigated as failures. Lost civilizations left behind cities that were rebuilt with totally different layouts, or trade routes that were abruptly rerouted, hinting at huge battles that shifted power but had no clear winner. And it wasn't just human error. Climate often played a huge role. A sudden drought could cripple supply lines, or a freak storm could mask an army's movements, making a planned attack impossible. We've found evidence of entire armies just melting away, soldiers abandoning their weapons and blending back into the civilian population. Yet, the official chronicles insist on a decisive, epic ending. They cover up the simple truth that many battles just exhausted both sides until sheer survival became more important than conquest, leaving no one in a position to record what really happened. Today, technology helps us peel back these layers of myth. Digital reconstructions can show us how fog, smoke, or a tricky bit of landscape distorted a commander's view, making them think they were winning when they were actually losing. But even with all this data, politics still gets in the way. Acknowledging that a famous victory was just a lucky accident, or that a devastating loss was self-inflicted, can undermine cherished national stories. So, museums and textbooks often choose simple clarity over messy complexity. They present these historical mysteries as romantic tales, not as warnings about the danger of misinformation. These battles weren't just fought with swords and spears. They were fought with information and perception. The real story isn't always about who is stronger, but who is more confused. The mystery persists not because the answers are lost, but because they're often inconvenient. They force us to question the stories we tell ourselves about power, memory, and our own history. Have you ever wondered about the battles history forgot? The ones where the outcome is shrouded in mystery. It turns out, these mysteries aren't just gaps in our knowledge. They're often deliberate creations, reflections of how power deals with uncertainty. Archaeology reveals a fascinating pattern. When the outcome of a conflict was unclear, rulers didn't wait for history to decide. They acted fast. They built massive monuments, issued decrees, and literally redrew maps to impose their version of victory. Ancient legends then cemented these stories, turning convenient narratives into destiny. Any texts that questioned the official story were suppressed, buried, or burned. This ensured that ambiguity couldn't weaken authority. Future generations inherited certainty instead of doubt, and simple stories of command instead of complex realities. But there's another, quieter force at play. Climate. Sudden cold snaps, brutal heat waves, or unexpected storms could completely change the course of a battle. We've found evidence of entire armies halted by mud, starved by drought, or scattered by fog. Later accounts, however, would blame a lack of courage or a cunning betrayal. Why? Because nature doesn't fit into a heroic story. It's an uncomfortable truth that something beyond human control can decide our fate. Today, technology allows us to align environmental data with battle timelines, exposing just how often weather, not will, was the deciding factor. Yet, admitting this vulnerability still unsettles the myth that strength alone forges history. The deepest silence surrounds the civilizations that vanish completely. Some battles didn't end in conquest. They ended in total collapse. Archaeology uncovers these absences in abandoned cities and abruptly ended cultures. Ancient maps show entire regions that emptied suddenly, hinting at conflicts so catastrophic they shattered society itself. Texts from neighboring powers sometimes speak of a chaos too great to even exploit. The mystery survived because there was no victor left to write the history. No authority who benefited from preserving the truth of a collapse without a conquest. Modern reconstructions bring us closer than ever before. We use satellite imagery, forensic analysis, and advanced simulations to reimagine these lost moments. But even with all our technology, perfect certainty is impossible. Battles are chaotic. Human events driven by fear, luck, and misjudgment. And even now political narratives prefer to smooth over these messy edges, framing unresolved conflicts as romantic enigmas rather than uncomfortable lessons about the limits of control. So, when we look back at these fields of unanswered questions, the silence feels intentional. The most mysterious battles don't just ask who won. They ask, who got to decide what winning even meant? As we continue to unearth new clues from the soil, data, and forgotten texts, a powerful realization lingers. Maybe mystery isn't just a gap in our knowledge. Maybe it's a choice. And as long as uncertainty is seen as a threat to power, some truths will remain buried, waiting for a future that's brave enough to accept that not every battle has a clear victor and not every story is told to make us feel safe. Thanks for watching. If you find these hidden histories as fascinating as I do, make sure to like and subscribe for more.